Hi, this is Sheriff Gary McFadden of the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office. For the past several weeks, months, and days, I have been questioned repeatedly, Sheriff, why don't you give a statement about what your ex-employees, ex-executive have said? Each time I would tell that person or those people, I can't by law. The law prohibits me from talking about personnel matters. This past weekend, I was at an event and two people said, Sheriff, tell them how you really feel. Tell them about how you feel betrayed. Tell them what your family is going through and tell them how your wife feel betrayed by the very people that you trusted and you actually entrusted them with your wife for their personal matters and personal well-being and also personal growth. So after thinking about that time and time again, I want to come to you to try to give you some clarity on what I feel and what has happened. And so in trying to give this statement, we have to understand by law, I cannot talk about personal matters. But they have the ability to talk about personal matters and they have the ability to be the victim. And I'm not going to play the role of the victim, but they do have that luxury to talk about what they believe and how they feel that they have been victims. And my statement today is not about personal matters, but it's about matters that are personally to me. The first is how I feel. I feel betrayed. I feel that my loyalty was betrayed. My trust in my staff was betrayed. And most of all, the betrayal that my wife felt when I told her who said what and what was said and by whom. And I remember that because one of the ex executive staff members had weekly calls with her and they talked to help them move along in their career. But imagine having dinner with the same people with your wife present. This was the first time my wife ever came involved with my work as a law enforcement officer for 44 years. And so I allowed her to come inside to see what we do. And so this is about my character, my reputation, my integrity, my loyalty, but most of all, it's about my legacy. And I have to tell you that I still feel betrayed, and my family feels betrayed, but most of all, my wife feels betrayed because she well knew how much she's helped several of these people and the conversation that she had with these people and recent conversations that we had with these people. And the reason that is so outstanding is because during the time of her illness, we still kept in touch with them and we allowed certain people to come and visit her at the hospital. But we all know that my ex executives or executive staff, which should be the people that you can trust with any conversation. When you have an executive staff, you believe that you can have these conversations, you can have these tough conversations, and you move on. That is not the case here. My executive staff, who should be my most trusted staff, is the most ultimate betrayal of my agency. And they betrayed me. And you hear them saying words like narcissist and godlike and all of that. What they should be saying is progressive, innovative, forward thinking, always direct, and always clear, highly motivated, have high expectations, demands accountability, but most of all, caring. Most of all, caring. So imagine for the first time people came to your home to eat. We have allowed the sheriff's deputies to come inside our home to eat, talk to my parents, talk to my in-laws, and help my grandchildren. But now to be betrayed by some of these very people is unbelievable. But most of all, I gave them grace. And they even have grace now because of the laws that will not permit me to talk about their personal time here, talked about their behavior here, talked about their evaluations here, and talked about all the things that we discuss during executive staff meetings. The meetings that are held away from all other staff members and the executive staff meetings should have been sacred, should have loyalty, should have honesty, but it wasn't. My executive staff, most of all, had betrayal. And why was grace part of it? Because here's why I think grace is part of it. They had grace to see one of the most successful, outgoing, progressive agencies here in North Carolina and possibly in America. And this is why I believe that a few of them seek employment here, not knowing that it was this progressive, this outspoken, this direct. The sheriff holds people to accountability, and we ask to be honest. But we did not get that. We simply got betrayal. And the grace which also allowed them time in their difficulties and not knowing how difficult it is to be the first. And why we say the first? We all know how difficult it is to be the first of anything. But to be the first African American law enforcement officer to also be betrayed by African American executive staff members is also something that I would never fathom happening. Why? Because I gave them grace and I gave them an opportunity that most of them would have never had or would have never experienced by working for an agency of this caliber. Which also leads me to be baffled because we all know in the African American community, the whispers are this. Why does African Americans target African Americans when they're at the top of leadership? Why any of these ex-executive staff members talked about their previously employers or their previous staff, even here at the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office? And so that leads me to the whispers of our community. Why now? Well, we all know it's election season, and we all know that I'm very outspoken, and we all know that the law is going to prohibit me to talk about personnel matters. So if one person's opened the door, it gives the advantage for other people to walk in and say what they want to say. But they will play the victim. I will not play the victim and will never play the victim. But here's what I want you to understand that I understand. In these days of trying to find out why, I don't need to know why. I just wish each and one of them good luck in wherever they may work. Again, I just ask that they don't be as deceiving and they do not betray their other employers as they betrayed me. And someone said, well, Sheriff McFadden, how do you go through this every day? Yesterday, a young man said, what books that you read to stand all of this betrayal and all of this criticism each day that you are subjected to? And I said, I have very good friends, number one. And I have very good sheriffs who have countlessly called me and say, stand strong, stand tall. We know who you are. The people that really know me, who really know me for over 40 years, know that my dedication to this community, my dedication to the victims, and even the dedication to my staff. Because what we are listening to is the executive staff members and not the people in the hallways, not the people in the pods, not the people that I talk to daily, not the people of the chain of command, as they say. Do I support the little man? Absolutely. Do I support the middleman? Absolutely. Do I support the executive staff? Absolutely. When you are honest, you are forthcoming, you're clear, and you're direct. Being on the executive level takes true leadership, true honesty, and tough skin. Why? Because you're going to hear some things that you may not want to hear because I'm requiring you to have accountability for others. I am not perfect, never asked to be perfect, and never will be perfect. All I was and still ask for is excellence. This is an agency of excellence, and it always will be, because this is what I expect each and every day. So if you want to work here, bring excellence. If you want to work here, bring honesty. If you want to work here, bring loyalty. If you want to work here, bring respect. When people say, Sheriff, how do you do this all the time? And you go on each and every day. How do you run an agency, still be criticized, and be betrayed by members of your staff, your current staff, and even the staff that have retired? I have a quote in one of my offices, and a quote that I always look at. And it's about a gentleman who wrote about another gentleman in 1940. And in that letter said, great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from the mediocre mind. The mediocre mind is incapable of understanding the man who refuses to bow blindly to conventional prejudices and chooses instead to express his opinion courageously and honestly. That is Einstein. This is what keeps me going every day. Not to dwell in the minds of the mediocre thinker, but to dwell in the minds of a progressive thinker, a forward thinker, a honest thinker who will not betray him or his staff. I want to thank you for listening. This is my statement. I put this to rest and I move forward. Thank you.